Hey everyone, it's Sammy from Push Square, and recently I got to go to a Sony event where they were showing off a handful of upcoming PlayStation VR games, and I thought instead of doing individual videos on each of them when I don't actually have any new gameplay footage to share with you, I'd just do one big video talking about all of the games that I saw. So if you want to hear more about Skyrim, there is an individual video elsewhere on the channel about that, but in this video I'm going to talk about the Inpatient, Doom VFR, Bravo Team and Moss in that order. So please do like the video if you're so inclined, please subscribe to the channel for more PlayStation VR content, and with that said, let's get into it. So the first game that I actually got to play was the Inpatient. Now this is by Supermassive Games. It's actually a prequel to Until Dawn, and it's set in kind of the mental asylum hospital type environment that you do actually get to visit in Until Dawn, but in this game it's actually set 60 years prior to the events of Until Dawn, so the hospital is sort of open and it hasn't been shut down yet, and there are patients in there and doctors and all that sort of stuff. So the demo starts out with you basically being kind of questioned by, I guess, a doctor or a physician or something like that, and this is the guy you may have seen in the trailers. He's like bearded with round spectacles. That guy, kind of creepy, kind of weird, and what really stood out to me in this demo is the interaction between the AI character, the computer character, and the way he sort of treats you and interacts with you. So his animation is really impressive, really believable, and you're kind of sat in a chair and he kind of reaches out and touches you on the shoulder and stuff like that. And what I found impressive is how affecting that is. Like when he reaches out to touch you, you expect to feel someone's hand on your shoulder and stuff like that, and that's something that only VR can do, which I thought was really impressive. The gameplay was kind of mostly picking dialogue options, so you'd get 2 dialogue options at any one time, and you'd look to the one you wanted to select, and you know, that's how the story progressed. It was a short demo, so I didn't really see any of the consequences of my decisions in that, but the developer is saying that this is going to have the same butterfly effect as Until Dawn, and one of the Sony guys was telling me that the story changes even like depending on what gender you select, so you can pick whether you're male or female at the beginning of the game, which is really cool. It did have a jump scare towards the very end of the demo, and if you played Until Dawn you'll know that Supermassive kinda cheats with jump scares, and it's definitely doing the same here. Like, it really made me jump big time because the demo lulls you into a false sense of security and then it's like bang. So yeah, that was quite embarrassing actually. The only thing I'll say about this game is that the kind of locomotion solution that it's using doesn't feel great. You hold the move button down on one of the controllers to walk forward, and you kind of tilt it left or right to sort of change the angle of the way you're walking. It's fine. One thing I noticed is like your whole body is rendered within the virtual world, so if you look down you can see your whole body rather than just floating hands. But it's really strange because I wrote in my preview, it kind of feels like you're like a inflatable sex doll or something like that, with your forearms at right angles to your biceps. It just looks really awkward, I thought, and I think I'd prefer if it was just floating hands in this instance. I can't really say much more though. Visuals are very impressive. There's like dust floating, the hospital itself seems really detailed, and there are people walking around, and there's a lot of atmosphere here, which I think is what this game is ultimately going to live or die by, is that sense of atmosphere, that growing escalating tension, and how consequential your decisions turn out to be. I'm sort of excited to play the full game. I'm still a bit on it at the moment, but I'm definitely intrigued by it. It's a proper full-length story experience, which we haven't had a whole lot of on PlayStation VR, so I will be reviewing the full game. Like I said earlier, subscribe to the channel for that, and let me know whether you're excited for the Inpatient, and we'll move on to the next game. So the next game that I played was Doom VFR, was one that I was very intrigued by. I wanted to see how they handled this. So I got to play with PlayStation Move controllers again, and I was really interested to see how they transfer Doom's very kinetic playstyle to controllers with no analog sticks, and I actually came away really impressed with the solution that they've come up with. So the game uses teleportation. Now, I'm not a big fan of teleportation in most games, but in this game in particular, I think they've made it make a lot of sense. So the way it works is you're kind of a scientist, and I believe the story runs concurrently with the main Doom campaign that was on the PS4 last year, but you're kind of a different character within that world, and you're a scientist, I believe, and you actually die within the first minute of the demo. And you kind of revive yourself as some sort of AI or some nonsense storyline like that. But basically, they come up with some narrative justification for why you can teleport. Okay, so when you're in combat encounters, the way it works is you shoot an enemy and they'll eventually turn blue. Now when they turn blue, that means that you can teleport into their body and finish them off, essentially. So it's similar to the way the glory kills worked in the main Doom campaign, but what this actually means is the game gives you a reason to keep moving around very quickly because you're constantly teleporting into enemies to finish them off. But it's like, it doesn't make you motion sick, it doesn't feel like it's overwhelming speed, and I think this was a really clever way of keeping you moving at intense speeds, which you need to do in Doom. Doom is not a stop and pop shooter. Doom is a shooter where you're constantly on the move. I think they've come up with a really good solution to make that work in virtual reality without making you feel sick or, you know, feel sick or ill or whatever, or give you a headache. So I was impressed with that. I didn't really get to see a whole lot of gameplay. It was just sort of one combat encounter in addition to a training mission, and I didn't like the way sort of grenades work. In your right hand you control your gun, in your left hand you can sort of throw grenades. I didn't really like the way that worked with motion controls. This is going to have PlayStation VR aim controller support, and I think it will be better with aim controller support as opposed to just move ones, because then you will have sticks as well, which is going to make turning and sort of dashing and stuff like that a little less cumbersome. But I was impressed with this game. It looked really nice, and I really liked that teleportation mechanic that kept you on the move, but still sort of made sense within the confines of the Doom universe, and you know, it felt like Doom gameplay. So yeah, that was a good one. I'm looking forward to that one. The third game I played was Bravo Team. Now this is a game I'd heard mixed things about, and I came away from it like sort of with a shrug of the shoulders, really. It's cool. It's, if you don't know it, this is another game by Supermassive, and it's kind of a military shooter that uses the PlayStation VR aim controller. I played it in co-op. You can play it in co-op. I believe there'll be single player option as well in the final game, but I actually got to demo it with co-op. And the way it sort of works is this has another interesting solution to locomotion, in that the camera pulls into a third person viewpoint when you move between cover points, but it keeps it first person when you're in a static position behind cover. And this sounds jarring on paper, but actually in practice it works really well, and it's another smart way of sort of reducing motion sickness and stuff like that. The problem with the game is that in the demo at least, it just wasn't all that exciting. You'd move between cover points, and kind of like Time Crisis, you sort of default in a cover position and then you hold a button to come out of cover and you can shoot, you know, like nameless terrorist guys or whatever, and that's all there really is to it. I like that in co-op you have that physical attachment to your partner, like you're actually physically looking around to see them and you can kind of gesture to them and stuff like that. That's really neat, and I think that adds something to the gameplay. But if there's not more to it, then this is just going to be a very straightforward, almost rail shooter basically, and that's fine. but it's not really that awe-inspiring, especially compared to some of these other games that I previewed. Like the Inpatient had a cool ambience and vibe to it. Doom VFR felt faster and more frenetic than Bravo Team ever does. And then the other game that I'm going to talk about next is Moss, which is totally unique and original. Bravo Team just kind of feels like another wave shooter for PlayStation VR. Looks good, although the demo was having some weird frame rate issues, and if you've got PlayStation VR, you'll know frame rate issues are an absolute no-no in virtual reality because they kill the motion tracking. I'm going to assume that that'll be fixed in the final build. They can't release it like it was in the demo, so I assume that'll be fixed and there won't be any issues there. But yeah, I wasn't really blown away by this. It just felt like a fairly pretty but very straight-faced and bland co-op shooter. So those are my thoughts on Bravo Team. And then finally, I'm going to talk about Moss very quickly because there is a demo up on the PlayStation Store now, so you can just go and try it yourself if you want to. Download PlayStation VR Demo Disc 2 for free from the PlayStation Store, and you can play what I assume is the same demo that I played, but Moss is absolutely brilliant. For those of you who don't know, it stars a mouse called Quill. It's a kind of puzzle platformer, but the big twist is that it's like a diorama that you're looking into this world, and the environments sort of surround you. If you tried the PlayStation VR kind of short movie thing, Alamet, it's similar to that actually, except you have full control over the character. And you're kind of solving puzzles and helping the mouse to get through the levels and sort of killing some enemies along the way and stuff like that. One of the neat tricks is that you actually have an attachment to the world, so at the start of the demo, if you look down into a pool of water, you can see your character's reflection, which I thought was a really clever way of integrating you into the game world itself. But you can also use the DualShock 4's motion tracking to pick up objects, to move things around, and that becomes a key part of the puzzle solving. Nothing in the demo was particularly challenging or difficult, but it felt good to do. The world felt tactile, and controlling the character of Quill in this kind of virtual reality setting that surrounds you is a really interesting and unique experience, and I'm blown away by this one actually. This is an absolute must-have, I think, but you can find that out for yourself if you play the demo that's on the PlayStation Store now. I'm sure you'll come away in agreement with me that this game is going to be amazing. So yeah, those are the games I played on PlayStation VR at Sony's event. Let me know what you think about all of the games in the comment section below. If you want to hear more about Skyrim, I did do a separate video on that because I had quite a lot more to say about Skyrim, so do check out the standalone video I did on Skyrim elsewhere on the channel. Remember to like the video and please subscribe for more PlayStation VR content pretty much every day, I think, certainly multiple times per week. And yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time. Cheers.